everybody, and welcome to the final live Q&A session of the Tunisian Crochet Summit. So I am delighted to be joined by for this last session by Miroslava from Exquisite Crochet UK. Sorry, my voice and my words seem to be failing me. And just if anyone is popping on and is not registered for the summit, you can do so via the QR code in the top corner there. So you still have plenty of time to watch all of today's videos. They're going to be there until tomorrow. And you can also watch all of the Q&A replays as well. So Miroslava, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your business, how you got started with Tunisian crochet and the kind of things that you like to make and design? Hi, are you able to hear me? Oh, you seem to be a little bit frozen, Miroslava. Hopefully she'll be able to come back. I am not seeing any messages from her. Okay, so we appear to have lost her. So I'll just give you a little, a quick overview of what her class was all about. So it was all about Tunisian crochet lace, which really allows you to create some beautiful fabrics with Tunisian crochet, and you don't actually have to have this dense fabric that you might associate with the traditional Tunisian stitches. So hi, I think you're back. I'm not sure.
Sorry.
You're back. That's good. Okay, so now you can take it away and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business and what you love to design.
Okay, hi. So as Sarah introduced me, my name is Miroslava Mihalkova, and I'm the designer behind Exquisite Crochet UK. So I'm UK-based, originally from Slovakia. I started crocheting perhaps close to 10 years now, and then was introduced to Tunisian crochet, fell madly in love with it, and that's I just stuck with it. So I publish my patterns on my website, and I particularly love creating shawls, blankets, and that's what brings us to lace. So you can't have shawls without lace. So for today, I prepared kind of introductory lesson to Grace that really helps you to get grasp with the basics, and then just take it away. Not overthink it too much. There are some simple instructions that help you to start working on your own patterns and let your creativity loose.
Yeah, thank you. So I love your video, and I love the way there's actually so many different ways to crochet lace. So you don't have to actually work a particular stitch pattern or anything. You could even start with something as simple as just using a really big hook. So I thought that was really clever. I would never have thought of doing that. And you can even create like just really nice kind of mesh patterns, can't you, with just very simple stitches and chains.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks really, really beautiful. So I have a few questions that were submitted before the summit. So we want to start with those. And if anyone who is joining us live wants to ask a question about Tunisian crochet lace or really anything Tunisian crochet related, then please do, because Miroslava has so many patterns and they're beautiful. And I think if you have a look at her website, which I will link to very soon, there's definitely enough there to keep you going for a good 6 to 12 months, if not longer, depending on how fast you crochet. Okay, so one of the questions we had, and we've talked a bit about this in earlier Q&A sessions, but what is the best way to block lace? So is there different techniques for blocking lace versus just blocking like something done with, say, the regular Tunisian simple stitch or knit stitch?
Yes, so there's two ways, basically. You can go for steam blocking. To be honest, as a technique, I really prefer it because Mommy's working. You need to go now. Mommy, come in a moment, okay? Yeah, please. Mommy's working. Sorry.
I just heard mine come in as well, so I'm just kind of hoping that door stays closed.
Okay, so steam blocking I really prefer because what it does, it gives you a beautiful drape for your fabric. So what I usually do, I would spread my project on my blocking mat, use pins. So I do prefer pins, even though I know that the standard procedure for lace is wires. But I've tried wires and I found them a little bit awkward. But if that is what you like to do, go ahead with wires, because it might be just easier to use them. But I'll use pins. So as you can imagine, if I block a project, I would have hundreds of pins on my project. So that's one way. And particularly for shawls, you would want to have a nice drape so the steam works perfectly. Another technique which I tried a few times with the nice results is wet blocking. So you would submerge your project in the water completely, then squeeze the water out. You don't want to wring it, you want to squeeze it out through towel, and then spread it on the blocking mat again and pin it down. The only thing with this technique is that it takes a little bit longer to project to settle and dry, especially during winter months. With steam, it works really lovely. Just leave it on the blocking mat overnight. So blocking helps with opening up the lace, but also if you have parts of projects which are in lace and then in normal stitch pattern, it helps you to combat the curl as well, which might be issue with Tunisian crochet sometimes. So yeah, I definitely would recommend blocking all the projects, lace and non-lace as well.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose with lace, you kind of have to do it, don't you, to open
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
To open it out. Yeah, I really liked your example of the shawl that you were working, and it didn't look like it was going to be lace at all. And then you blocked it, and all of a sudden it was just this beautiful lace pattern. So yeah, I think that's really good. So would you use steam blocking for all kinds of fibers, or do you have like a rule as to when you would wet block it or when you would steam block it?
Okay, so because I think my preferred method is steam blocking, I steam block anything.
Okay.
All the materials, although there is kind of, you need to be a little bit cautious with the synthetic materials, because if you go with the steam too close, you can kind of burn the fabric and it flattens it and distorts the stitches a little bit, or sometimes you can get like a sheen on top of the surface of your project. So you would want to go about half an inch to inch about your fabric, not to burn it. With the wet blocking, it's a little bit easier because there's no risk that you will damage your fabric, but it then down to how long you want to keep your project on the blocking mat.
Yeah, it's going to take a bit longer to dry, isn't it? And do you just use your iron, or do you have one of those like garment steamer?
Yes, so I've started with my iron and I've used it for years and it worked fine. Yeah, and then as I kind of progress with the projects, then I got myself a steamer and it just works fine, but your regular iron is just fine as well.
Yeah. And do you have a particular yarn weight or fiber that you like to work with for lace, or have you tried lots of different ones depending on the type of project that you were making?
Okay, so I really love working with fingering weight yarn for lace projects. I know some crocheters think it's too thin and it takes too long, but especially with lace, your project works up really quickly because once you stretch it and block it, it kind of grows considerably. And fingering weight yarn gives you really beautiful definition of the stitches, and you can make kind of even summer accessories with finger and weight yarn, so I would definitely give it a go. You can also use alternatively sport weight yarn, but as you go up in the yarn weight, you need to think about your hook size and then the season as well. Because for example, with DK weight yarn, you might work up your project really quickly, but it does tend to be a little bit thicker, so it's more for the winter month or kind of chilly autumn months.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I'm just going to go back to my list of questions here. So what is the simplest Tunisian crochet lace pattern to get started with?
Okay, so the completely simplest, if you want to take it just from the beginners, is I would use Tunisian simple stitch with much larger hook, because as you work the stitches, it would naturally give you kind of like a airy lacy texture. So let's say we would have finger and weight yarn, and you would use normally for normal stitch pattern maybe 4 or 5.5 millimeter Tunisian crochet hook. So if you do very, very basic lace, I would, for example, go to 8 or 9.
Okay,
And
go that high.
simple stitches, then block it out, and it would kind of, the stitches would open up. If you then want to take it maybe a step further, I would alternate Tunisian simple stitches with yarn overs. That yarn over gives you that negative space between stitches that starts creating your lace.
Yeah, I really like that example that you did as well, and it's just so easy. And another thing that I did not know or didn't even think about until I saw your video was the idea of binding off in pattern.
Yes.
Because I used to just do the slip stitch bind off for absolutely everything. And then as I was working, as I was watching your video, I was actually making a scarf, and it wasn't lace, I would say, but there was a pattern involved, like chaining and then Tunisian crochet two together. And I bound off in that method, and it just looked so much better. And I was like, oh my God, I'm blown away. That is such a good idea.
Yeah. It took me a while to figure it out, especially when you have a stitch pattern and then you would just go with Tunisian simple stitch bind off, and you would think like that last row doesn't look just quite right, like you can just glance at it and see that, oh, it just looks like Tunisian simple stitch and it doesn't flow nicely all the way to the end. So when you take close-up pictures, it kind of like looks a bit sordid.
Yeah, it does look like something has gone wrong with that last row, because the rest of it is beautiful, and then you have all these bars just on your last row. So
Yeah, and it works with any stitch patterns, even with ribbing, Yeah, so you just continue your stitch pattern all the way through to the bind off as well, and it gives you the continuity of stitch pattern.
Speaking of ribbing, do you have any tips for working ribbing in Tunisian crochet? Because we were just discussing this with Veronica as well, and we were saying it's a little bit hard to get that kind of stretch with Tunisian that you can get maybe with knit ribbing or with regular crochet ribbing. So do you have any tips for working a ribbing type pattern with Tunisian, or is it just a matter of going down to a slightly smaller hook if you want it a little bit tighter?
Okay, so I've designed a few projects with ribbing, and what I did was I would go down with the crochet hook size by about half a size. So if I was working the main stitch pattern in 5, I would do the ribbing in 4.5 or maybe 4 sometimes. But as you said, there is the issue with that it's not stretchy ribbing. So I haven't tried this in my patterns so far, but I've seen another designer to, as we as we work the return pass and you go yarn over pull through 2, so the designer introduced an extra chain in there, and that made the ribbing stretchy. So I haven't tried, so I can't kind of say whether it works or not, but that's another option. Or I have a pattern which is just Tunisian brioche throughout, but that kind of creates quite stretchy fabric. So maybe instead of ribbing, I would use that brioche pattern in one color, and then that might work as a ribbing as well. Or the next option, it would be just to combine it with ordinary crochet. There are some nice ribbings in normal crochet. But so there are options, definitely.
Yeah, that's what Veronica was saying that she does. She goes back to regular crochet for her ribbing, and then she gets that nice stretch. So tell me about brioche crochet or Tunisian. I know nothing about this.
Yes, so I have one pattern in brioche. So this would be worked in double-ended crochet hook. So you will have to, if you would work with 2 colors, that as you finish your one row, you would kind of slide your whole project to the other side, flip it, and then you would go back with the other color. It's conceptually it's hard to explain, but once you start working the pattern, it makes really sense. So I've seen hats and kind of accessories made in the Tunisian brioche. It looks quite nice. It has got very nice ribbing texture, and it works really nice if you use one of the colors as variegated yarn. So it has got the really nice color changes without having millions of ends in your project.
Okay, so you're actually turning at the end of your row and working another row back. Yeah. Okay, so it's not the same as Tunisian where you always have the right side facing. Oh, I'm going to have to try that. It sounds really nice. That sounds great. Okay, we have a question here from Nessa, so I'll just pop that up on the screen. So she's asking, what do you do when you add a new skein with such thin yarn and doing lace? Do you just tie a knot or work it in and weave in the ends? That's a really good question. Joining in is hard. I'm not very good at it.
Okay. So what I would do is I would wait to add another yarn at the end, on the edges, so it kind of hides it. If you add the yarn in the middle of the project, especially in lace, some of the stitches can get elongated, and then you try to kind of like pull it on it from the back, and then it gets too small. So what I do, even though I like to play yarn chicken, I get the best use of the yarn, but sometimes I just kind of have to compromise. I say, okay, even though the yarn is quite long, I know I'm not going to go through another row with it, so I just join either at the beginning of my forward pass. So when you do the last yarn over pull through 2 of the return pass, I would yarn over with a new color or a new skein, or then at the end of the row when you basically do yarn over pull through 1 and then yarn over pull through 2. So on the yarn over pull through 2, that's where I would change the color.
Okay. And actually, someone did ask this yesterday. Do you have a preference for changing color or introducing a new skein at the start, or on the right or the left, so on the forward pass or the return pass?
Mm-hmm.
Or does it matter?
My preference would be probably at the beginning of the row. When you
Finishing
work the first row, yes, it just seems that it's a little bit more stable. But the end of the row works also well, especially if you are working color changes on both sides to get kind of that nice marbled effect on your project. So yeah, I think the edges really work well. And what I also do is I just don't leave the end there. So what I do is I take the leading strand of yarn, the one that I'm going to be working with, and I wrap it around both of the short ends to kind of secure it in a place, and then I start working with the yarn. So I don't do knots, because once you wrap it around the 2 strands, the short ends, and then you weave them in, it's all kind of in a place and secure, so that there's no need for knot, especially in lace, because it can introduce a little bit of a bulky thickness, on that bit.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's harder to join in. If you were to try and join in the middle of the row, you're going to have a very visible knot, aren't you? Yeah, it's not looks so great. Okay, that's really good. That's a really good tip about wrapping around the ends, because I find I can do quite neat changes at the end of the return pass, to say starting a new row. But then at the end of the row, I just can't get them to be so neat, because that new strand is kind of just hanging there, and then when I get to do the next end stitch,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, where do I go in here? And it's just still kind of hanging there.
Yeah.
So that's a really good tip, isn't it?
There's actually another tip, just thinking about it. So I've learned this a few years ago. So if you want to change color at the end of forward pass, and you want to kind of the edge, when you work the edge through the last 2 strands, it kind of give you that nice side look, almost looks like a chain, but kind of interwoven chains. So if you want to maintain that and changing new colors, what you do is, before you do the last stitch, and then you wrap the yarn, the one that is currently active, from front to back over the hook. So you kind of introduce another loop. So you would add 1 stitch, but then with the new color, you would do yarn over pull through 2. So you would increase 1 and then decrease it, and that gives you still the nice look of the edge. Sometimes if you're changing colors a lot, it might look a little bit kind of ragged on the side.
Yes, I know what you mean. So you're kind of adding a stitch just to do the color change, but then straight away working it off again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
That's cool. Thank you. That's a really good tip. They're excellent. So Nessa has another question, and she's just saying she would love to do brioche Tunisian. I have never done it. Do you look at crochet brioche or knit brioche for the Tunisian brioche patterns, or design them? I presume she means like design it from scratch based on Tunisian crochet stitches.
Okay. So I'm not familiar with brioche knitting so much. I've just started knitting, I think, 2 years ago. So yeah, I learned it on YouTube, basically, and then adapted to my own patterns. So I have to give credit to unknown designer that published it on YouTube. Yes, but it is possible to work Tunisian crochet brioche as well.
That's great. And we have a really nice comment for you here. So Marina says that she's been learning so much from you here and your excellent tutorials. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you very much. Thanks.
Do you tend to do video tutorials to go along with your written patterns, or does it depend on how easy or difficult the pattern is?
Okay, so I've started my YouTube channel just to kind of introduce different stitches and stitch combinations. And then I've got a few master classes as well on basics of Tunisian crochet and then basic color work. So I'm building on that. But what I found is lots of crocheters ask me if there are video tutorials to come with my patterns, because if you are creating a pattern, I think you probably find the same, and you have the concept in your mind and you've done your sample, that it just seems really straightforward for you, even how you explain things, but people might interpret it slightly differently. So I thought I learned initially crochet and Tunisian crochet from watching tutorials because I didn't understand the written text. So I was like, I might as well do that video tutorial. So then I started adding my video tutorials for my patterns, and that's what I'm trying to do with every new pattern. I try to do a video tutorial, and I'm kind of working the backlog of my older patterns as well. So.
Okay, oh, that's great. I'm just going through my page of links here to find the link to your YouTube so that everybody can subscribe to you. So I have it here. I'm just going to pop that into the chat. So you love to design shawls. Do you have another favorite thing to design? Is it garments or accessories, or
yeah, I love
what's your go-to thing?
And blankets. I think these are my two favorite things. I think they both give you lots of fabric to kind of express your creativity. You know, so sometimes I start designing something and I'm like, okay, maybe I can just combine it with this stitch pattern and that stitch pattern. And I think if I was just making some smaller bits, I wouldn't really express the ideas behind what I want to create. But I have few smaller things like cowls, hats. I've got a few cowls and hats, few garments. But with garments, I've got a few garments in my portfolio, but I mainly design garments for kind of yarn companies and magazines and things.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've got a few of those as well. So I've got a few washcloths, just kind of like a quick stitch patterns, and yeah. I think the blankets and shawls are my two main things. Yeah.
And in terms of shaping for your shawls, have you experimented with the different shapes, or because I know there's so many ways to make a triangle, isn't there?
Yeah.
Do you have a particular technique, or do you kind of like trying something new with every?
So the shaping, that's what I learned actually from knitting. So I've done a few courses in kind of like a shaping for knitting and especially shaping shawls. So I still got a few more things that I want to try, but with Tunisian crochet, the slight difference between Tunisian crochet and knitting is that in Tunisian crochet, the stitches tend to be longer than wider. While with knitting, they are kind of almost as wide as long, you know. So, and especially if we do extended stitches in Tunisian crochet, they are even longer. So that's what needs to be taken into account for kind of adding stitches and making the fabric grow in a certain way. But yeah, the triangles, I have few triangles which are made from top to bottom, few which are made from bottom to top. And then my Sydney shawl, that it was a caul. 2 years ago, I've done a kind of the banana shape, so where you are shaping on both sides in a different ratio. So I really enjoyed that pattern as well. So yeah, I love to experiment. So there's quite a few things that I would like to try, especially circular shawls. I think they would be a nice challenge to kind of figure out the right ratio of increases and decreases for the circular shape.
Yeah, so Andrea has some shawls in that shape, and yeah, I can almost see the math happening when you're looking at the shawl. So yeah, that's definitely a challenge. Yeah, there's unlimited shaping options, isn't there? And I find it hard to just stick to making one thing. I kind of, with every project, I like to be just doing something different.
Yeah.
So I've just linked to your YouTube, and I'm actually going to pop a link into your website as well. And you have so many patterns available. Honestly, if anyone has not been following Exquisite UK already, you're going to be really busy once you get onto this website. So I can't believe you're not doing this full time. So you're designing on the side of your regular life. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm currently in full-time work. I think I still design, I think about a few patterns a month, but I think I really put out the majority of my patterns when I was on maternity leave with
Okay.
kids. And I had them kind of in quick succession. So I had like a bulk of maternity leave to take a few years ago. So that's when I kind of really got things off the ground.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Okay, so I've just popped in those links. So you have also contributed a beautiful pattern to our VIP pass. So I'm going to put the link in here for the very last time today, because this is our last live Q&A. So for a quick recap, you can get 14 crochet patterns submitted by our designers, as well as lifetime access to all of these Q&A replays, as well as all of the video classes in the past. And also a beautiful Tunisian crochet guidebook that you can print off or have in your tablet, and it just gives you another way to view some articles and step-by-step tutorials all about Tunisian crochet if you do not want to watch the videos. So Miroslava, thank you so much. I've popped your YouTube and your website link in there. Is there any other links that you would like me to add, or where is the best place to find you?
Okay, thank you very much for that. Yeah, I think YouTube and my blog, they're updated very regularly on Instagram. I think that's my most favorite social media. So I've almost
I'm going to add that as well then.
thank you. Updated almost daily for kind of sneak peeks, new releases. But if you want to be kind of the first one to know about everything that is happening with Exquisite Crochet, then sign up for my newsletter. I offer my subscribers special discounts and kind of, access to the patterns prior to everyone else. So yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think that possibly goes for all of the designers that we have featured in the summit. If you can get onto their email lists, that is the best way to make sure you don't miss anything, because we all know we're on Facebook, Instagram, all the places, and you might see something or you might never see it. And it's kind of hard to trust it as a reliable source. So the email list is definitely the best place to be for sneak peeks and exclusive patterns and all of that sort of thing. So we're just going to finish off, I think, with a lovely comment from Robin. So thank you, Robin. So she says, these 2 days of Tunisian crochet has me dreaming about attending an all Tunisian crochet cruise or retreat, so we can all meet and learn in person. Wouldn't that be wonderful as well? So for me as the host, I have to say, getting to chat to all the designers and to chat with people in comments and things like that has been my favorite part of the whole summit. And hopefully someday we will all get to meet in person. So wouldn't that be absolutely amazing? So thank you everybody who has attended the lives and who has watched the videos over the course of the last 2 days. And especially I see some names in the chat that I feel like have been on every single live. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your lives to join us. So I think we leave it there, Miroslava. Thank you so much and take care, everyone.